This is the Final Round Podcast, coming to you live from the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. And now your host, Chris Marquardt. Good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the Final Round Drag Racing Podcast. Excited to have you along for the ride tonight on episode number 71, a special episode number 71. We've been chasing this guest for literally 2 years.
At least 2 years.
At the least, right? And joining us on the line tonight, we've got the almost famous, almost legendary car owner of Jason Oldfield's ever-successful Camaro, Phil Harnden, joining us on the line. And I'm really, really excited about it because the show that we've got in front of us is going to be very entertaining. There's going to be so many great stories. And as much as we joke and everything like that, Phil's had a very, very good career in drag racing.
Oh, he has. And he's had a very interesting, I guess I would say, just, you know, not only racing. I mean, obviously this show focuses on the drag racing aspect, right? But he has had a very interesting life in general, being in the Navy and growing up out on a farm out in Wolcott and stuff like that. And yeah, lots and lots of stories. But he's, you know, kind of one of those. I won't say he's soft-spoken because he's not soft-spoken, but he's not one to talk about himself. So, yeah, I mean, in the past he's told me, he's like, look, I really don't want to be on the podcast. And I've twisted his arm, and he finally agreed to come on the show.
And once he's on, he's going to be hooked, and he's going to be in studio. And
I hope so.
Regularly part of it, right?
Sure, absolutely. No reason not to.
Well, Phil, man, welcome to the show. I'm excited to have you on, and definitely been looking forward to it. How's your evening?
Very good, Chris. I appreciate you guys finally having me on. You know?
Well, I mean, how did this year go for Phil Harnden Racing? You know, the Camaro made some passes, and finally you were able to work some of the bugs out of it and get the thing to go straight. At long last, it was going straight.
Right.
Yes, we finally, Jason and I finally come up with what was wrong and updated a lot of different things and everything, and the last couple of years has been a real pain. But I think we got it straightened out now. We've got about 8 or 10 passes on the car with it going straight as an arrow, and we're very happy right now, right, Jason?
I would say yes, I am. I'm thrilled. It's amazing to me that after all this work and all the things that we've done, and I don't know if I've mentioned on the show or not. I'm sure I've probably told Chris, but I know I've told other people that it's really just been, let's call it a string of bad luck with one thing after another going wrong, and everything that's gone wrong is something that you could point to say, all right, yeah, that would make the car go to the right like it has been. And yeah, so your wallet's a little lighter, newer rear end housing, new struts.
Definitely.
Yeah, so at this point, but yeah, I know that I think you and we may have actually kissed in the pits after the car went
James,
straight.
You didn't have to tell him that.
Yeah, it's really incredible.
It's been a rough couple of seasons, but we got a real good handle on it. Especially thanks to John Torelli for helping us, and F.J. Smith, and a lot of other people too.
Yeah, I mean, I will say the racing community in general. I mean, you know, you struggle a little bit. You have your issues. You know, people kind of leave you alone. But after a while, when people see that, all right, you're really struggling, people start offering their help. And yeah, we've had a whole bunch of people basically, hey, send me pictures. You know, talk to me on the phone.
Did any of them take it for a pass?
No, but Phil and I were at that point where it's like, hey, you know what? What do you think about putting somebody else in the car?
Because it would have really, really been hard when they came back and they say it went straight.
Right.
Chris, what we actually talked about was the first one we talked about putting back in the car was, was Mark Herbal. See, Mark drove it a long time too. When we first started racing the Camaro, and the other one we talked is Jason's buddy, Billy Liebert. We talked about putting him in there, but we just never got to the point that we were going to do it. we'd find something else or do some other direction.
We were close, though. I mean,
we were close on both of them, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I had told Phil multiple times, look, I don't know what else to do at this point, and I don't know, maybe I forgot how to drive. I mean, just...
Yeah, but when we had the camera in the car, you could see you weren't turning the steering wheel.
Right, yeah.
A little better.
But we sort of really knew it, but...
Just making that much power that it just wouldn't go straight.
I mean, you get to the point, like I said, where you're out of ideas and you're like, I just don't know anymore. And yeah, maybe just for my own sanity, let's put somebody else in the car and see what happens, right?
Oh yeah, and a lot of other teams have done that before too, and in drag racing or in stock car racing,
There's a lot of passes and a lot of laps that have gone by since you leaving the Navy and Jason getting into the Camaro. Tell me a little bit about how things got started on this crazy roller coaster that you've had in your racing career.
Well, believe it or not, Chris, the first thing is I'm originally from Wolcott, Wolcott, New York, which is in Wayne County, all right? And the old 104 used to go right through the village of Wayne County, or right through the village of Wolcott. And I was probably 10 or 11 years old, and there's another racetrack, which I think you've heard of, Chris, is South Butler or Kings Dragway or Savannah Dragway. And it wasn't only like about 7 or 8 miles from Wolcott. And I used to sit on a garbage can at the signal light and say, hey, buddy, can I have a ride to the racetrack with you? And then one thing led to another on that, And I got hooked up with a guy from Staten Island years ago that really taught me, and I learned a lot from him. And he had a 69 Camaro modified car, and I used to go to a few national events and points races with him. And the next thing I know, I ended up with, as some of the Buffalo guys would know, I bought Stormalong's Camaro, Westburg and Westfall's car, and I ran that for probably 6 years. Then I had a street roadster that I started racing super gas, and then I ended up building another one, another street roadster, and that, excuse me, Jeff Hoyt in North Tonawanda built that, and then I ended up with buying this Camaro that Jeff Hoyt built, and I've had it ever since, what was it, 86, I think I bought it, and we figure it's got at least 5,000 passes on it.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so, at least.
I'm sitting in my office, at my desk, and I can open one drawer, and there's probably a half a dozen of inner Kodak mail envelopes that are just stuffed full of ET slips.
Right. So when did you decide to get out of the car? I mean, the car that you've got now, it had to be pretty close to new when you turned it into a race car, right?
Well, it wasn't. When I turned it into a race car, Chris, it wasn't ever a race car. This is a two-chassis car that was all handmade and everything. Gotcha. This never came off a Chevy production line or anything. Believe it or not, I never was one that I had to drive and that's it. I've had my share of drivers and stuff over the years, and I didn't have to drive. I just enjoyed being at the racetrack, working on the car, working at the car at the shop, and
spending
stuff
money.
Like that. And the biggest thing is with Jason, out of all my drivers that I've ever had, nobody lived 10 minutes from me like Jason does.
Yeah, I mean, it is, overall, it is, for Phil, an advantage just because So Mark Herbal, so we'll use Mark as an example. I mean, Mark drove for Phil for quite a while. Mark lives in Buffalo. So, I mean, it's just little things, right? You need a hand taking a transmission out. And it's not super hard, but it's just easier if there's a second set of hands there. And so, yeah, before it was not that Mark wouldn't help him, but it's like, hey, could you help me come, take the tranny out? It's like, all right, well, let me schedule it, and I'll make the hour drive out to your house, all the rest of it. For me, it's like, hey, you're 10 minutes away. Could you come over just quick for 10 minutes to give me a hand taking this out? Yeah, sure, no problem. I run over there and pull the tranny out. So from that standpoint, it's really nice for Phil for me to be able to help him out from that standpoint.
He spoiled me on that. But changing the subject just a little bit that I got to throw in here. I mean, Chris, I'm telling you, I can remember Jason being at the racetrack with John, his dad, racing the Corvette and everything, and seeing Jason running around and stuff. And then many years later, he ends up driving my car, and it's just been a really good situation for both of us, because Jason don't have the time sometimes to work on the car and stuff, on his own race car and everything. And especially with me being retired now, I do that. But if I, like just for example, if I got it, like he's saying, I'll take the transmission out by myself. But to put it back in the car, it's sure nice to have another body there and stuff, And anytime that I ask him, hey, look, I need some help or something, and he's right here. So you can't complain on that,
For all the times that we talked about that car, I always thought that was a street car that had gone through a couple different iterations to get to where it was. I never realized that was a race car through and through from the get-go. I always thought that was on the road at some point early in its life, and for whatever reason it ended up going through that evolution.
No, that was a purpose-built race car.
It's all chrome alley chassis and stuff,
Yeah, like Phil said, Jeff Hoyt built that car. Did it in 85, Phil?
84.
Okay. Yeah, he built it in 80, so is it 86 now? Is that what it is officially?
Yeah, well, they updated it with the ground effects stuff and everything. I can't tell you what year that was.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it got updated to the body style, it was updated to
so it was built in 84 as an 85 Camaro, then updated to the 86 trim, whatever that did, right? But Hoyt built that car brand new, and, and like Phil said, Jeff Hoyt just built the previous yellow Roadster, right? Or the red one?
No, Jeff built the red one. The yellow one came from S&W.
S&W, right. Right. So that was Phil's second Jeff Hoyt car, and the interesting story with Jeff Hoyt that a lot of people don't know is that he went off to work for Jack Roush. He had his own shop. Geez, I would say it couldn't have been long after you built that car, or you bought that car, Phil, that he took off for Roush's place, right?
Well, what happened was he did I forgot what the heck Jeff did then. I can't remember what he did on the Camaro, okay?
Yeah.
But a few things that he did on it, right? And I moved to Florida, to Clearwater, Florida, and like a month later, he went to work for Jack Rouch.
Right.
And I can't tell you if it's 20 or 30 years. I think it's 30 years. He just, I don't know, I think Herbie told me that he retired, last year maybe, with 30 years with Rouch and stuff,
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
And he's around here once in a while,
Sure.
Yeah, pretty unbelievable, pretty amazing. Going back before that, though, the one thing that always interests me is, how people got into racing. And I know that, you as a kid, you'd go down to South Butler. Well, go ahead.
I want to jump in with this real quick before we do that. How in the heck does somebody who's sitting underneath the stoplight in Wolcott find a race team from Staten Island? What was that?
So how'd you get hooked up with...
Chris, that's a long story. Believe it or not, there was a points race, and I think it was 1971 at at Niagara Dragway, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And there were some guys that had a race car from Rochester, because I can't even remember their names. And this guy from Staten Island, his name was Butch McKinnon, was pitted next to us, and him and I started talking and stuff, and then the next thing, there was another race in Montreal, and he didn't have a motel, and I had a motel, and 40 or 50 years later, Butch and I still were friends. He passed away 2 years ago, and living in Florida then, but that's how I got hooked up with Butch, and we just stayed friends for many, many years,
So just traveling all over the place. I mean,
yeah. Here's one for you, Chris. Okay.
Okay.
This is a Waterloo story.
Okay.
Years ago, this would have been in the late 50s now, okay? When Waterloo Speedway, or the fairgrounds, was a real hot place for dirt track modifieds and stuff, okay? My dad would take me over to Waterloo, or we'd go to Weedsport. Most of the time we go to Waterloo. And, I'd see these guys crashing these cars and everything, and now I've been to the drags and everything. Hey, I don't like these race cars coming home in a basket, I like the drag races better. You don't bring them home like that, or wrecking them and crashing them and stuff. But I used to go to Waterloo quite a bit, and this would have been in the late 50s.
Mm-hmm. So that's what I was going to ask. I mean, your dad didn't race or anything, but your dad must have been...
He just liked to, he knew I was interested, and he'd take me to... He liked dirt track racing,
That time frame predates, like, the...
Wheels?
No.
No. I want to say rolling wheels, not...
There's a racetrack.
Late 60s, I think.
Yeah, rolling wheels opened a little bit after that.
No, Phil, I meant that you were actually going to the track before the wheel was invented.
Oh, cut it out!
These were horse-drawn chariots, right?
No. When I first started racing, they didn't have dirt then.
Right.
Everything was too new still.
Right.
The only thing's wrong with Jason is he is jealous he wasn't back that far.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, there's no lie about that.
That's just a little bit before the era that you're talking. I think was just a little bit before, like, the McCardles and Willie Allen and Dutch Hogue ran at Waterloo periodically. There was some really, really strong running.
Yeah. No, there was some good racing over there, And
now, I mean, Chris,
I can remember in the early '60s of going to Syracuse, and my dad says to me, "This is what they called the Schaefer race back in the early '60s, right?" Okay. My dad says to me, he was always a little crude talking. He said, "Hey, go out in the garage, put 2 big step ladders in the car." Oh yeah, okay, Dad. For what? Just do it. Okay. So we go there, and the next thing you know, we're at nobody ever even thought about a step ladder at a dirt track. We were sitting in the infield, and we're sitting there watching everything. We're 4 or 5 feet higher of everything, and it was good. It was,
Now, I mean, you, at some point, I mean, how did you really get to know all the dirt track guys? Was it just from going to the races, or?
Nah, you know what, Jason? I really didn't. I didn't know the drivers other than just a handful. There was a couple guys that were from Wolcott that were playing with it, but they didn't have any money. No, I did not like we know the drag racing community and stuff. No, I didn't know any of the dirt track. I mean, I knew who they were and stuff.
Yeah.
No.
But it's like, I know, I mean, the Hender shots, right?
Well, that wasn't, the Hender shots were asphalt late model guys, okay, that lived just down the road. And, those guys I was friends with, but the dirt track guys, no. Some of the asphalt guys that ran Spencer Speedway and stuff, and some of the engine builders and stuff, yes. I did know them, you know.
A couple of years ago, Ray Hendershot, after he got cleared up, made a return to racing, and he drove another season or so before.
This is not the same Ray Hendershot. Ray Hendershot just died maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and he was 100 years old.
Well, maybe it was his kid or grandkid or something.
I was assuming that was
none of the Hendershot kids ever drove race cars. Bud was the one that owned all the cars and had the money. Ray was the engine builder.
Okay.
Okay. And then Bud just died, I want to say, year and a half ago. He was, I think, 91 or 92, you know. But their shop was right up the street from us, you know. And we were always hanging out and stuff, like with probably his most famous driver. And I don't know if you've ever heard of him, Chris, or not, was Brian Horn.
Can't place that one.
So now Brian
Horn?
Yeah.
Yes, Brian Horn. He actually won when they used to go take, in other words, the asphalt modifieds, and this is back in the early 80s and stuff, right? And I'm going to call them strictly stock back then, okay, that they, you know, raced at Lancaster and Spencer and stuff like that. And there's probably 100 cars for this race. And Bud Hendershot with Brian Horn, they won the whole race. You know, I mean, that was big, you know. But that was like where they talking on that was the second class. The modified class, that was the same race that they called Langhorne, and then they moved Langhorne to Pocono.
Right.
Langhorne, what the heck is that?
Langhorne was that was a track at one point, right?
Yeah, it was in New Jersey, and that's where all the modified cars from the Northeast, they'd have one big race, and I'm going to say September, October.
Oh.
You know, and every modified car, and then the street stock cars. Okay, these were like 71 Monte Carlos and stuff.
Yeah.
Small block with a glide, and they'd race down there. That was their Daytona for the Northeast guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was a big asphalt race, and then after that went away, there was a void there, and there was a couple other races that popped up here and there. Shangri-La started getting a lot of their big attention, and Nazareth started really carrying a lot of weight at that point too, right?
Yes. I just saw a picture of Nazareth the other day. You know, I mean,
right.
It's all, you know, the weeds are all growing up. It's a shame, you know.
It's tough one to let go. Nazareth was a neat track.
I honestly didn't know that it was closed.
Yeah, it's been closed a long time.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Penske owned it. I don't know. Chris, did he sell it to somebody else?
Did Penske own it, or did ISC own it? International Speedway Corp, the ones that have like 49.5% in NASCAR. They own Daytona. They own.
You know what? That's a real good question. I thought that Penske owned that for a while, but then it just seems like he sold it to somebody else, and then it went kabunk.
Yeah.
But don't quote me on that.
Penske may have had it way back when.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So you should have Phil.
I know. We've digressed.
Have Phil on the 31st lap,
Jason's,
right?
Jason's over there sitting on his hands, waiting for a chance to chime in or something.
Oh God!
I find it interesting. I mean, I don't know anything about it, but I still find it interesting. You know, and you know what's interesting to me from Phil's perspective is the fact that he went to circle tracks, but then got into drag racing. I mean, did you race at all, Phil, before?
It didn't strike me those overlap either. It doesn't strike me that you see a lot of that back and forth.
No, I don't think you do, honestly.
What's the question now?
I mean, I don't think you see a lot of people that, let's call it, grow up in circle track racing that go drag racing or vice versa, right? I mean,
no, not really. I mean, right off the top of my head, I can't say some, or remember one. But yeah, it's happened. Okay.
I guess. Is it Jeg Coughlin's kid?
Yeah, it's one of the jigs as a kid. They had an ASA car.
Yeah.
And they might. I don't know if they have one now or not. they might have run that the truck series, maybe.
Right. Yeah, I thought maybe they might have run the truck series a little bit.
Yeah. But I know the kid, and I don't know who his father is. If it's
it could be John, it could be Mike, it could be Jag. I don't know.
Jaggies or Johns, right?
Right.
Okay. Yeah. And I know they ran ASA with that before ASA went amok. Now, what's that other, Chris? What's that other ARCA? He might have played some with the ARCA.
Oh.
These guys might have played with ARCA too.
ARCA had a lot of backing from Advanced Auto Parts when Advanced Auto Parts was on Cruz Pedregon's cars.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
On the Pedregon rides.
Yep.
Yeah. So there was a lot of neat pictures with Frank Kimmel and his car situated in various photo shoots with the two trailers and the funny car with it and stuff. It was going back a little ways when they had.
Do all those series still exist? Is ASA and ARCA? Do they still?
ASA, I don't think they're around. They might have changed names, like the
I
Bush
know they
North
went
series
bankrupt.
has changed. There's a different name there. ARCA still runs.
Okay.
Forever they were backed by Remax. They've got I think they're backed by Menards now.
Okay.
I think they're under that banner, but they're still around and they still serve the same purpose that they had in years past. And then like the K&N Pro Series, that's still around in different versions and different names and stuff like that.
Well, see, it's funny because like the K&N Pro Series is a name that I recognize, but it was either a series that I guess came about after, let's call it after the fact, or it was one of these series that got renamed, because that's not a series that I ever remember watching as a kid.
Right.
Even though we were drag racers, still being racers in general, I guess that, if there was an ARCA race or something like that on TV, we would still watch it, right? It was better to watch an ARCA race than have to watch a game show or something like that. So we would watch races like that occasionally. But yeah, like the K&N Pro Series, that came up like way after, let's call it, I ever stopped watching any of that stuff. So I couldn't tell you where that came from or anybody that competed in that series. But
so Mike McLaughlin used to drive modifieds around here.
He was from Waterloo,
Yes,
right? Or
yes.
that area, right?
Yeah, he went to school with my dad in Waterloo.
Okay.
So his kid is Max McLaughlin.
Okay.
And Mike went on to have a really good career in NASCAR. He won a couple. They were Grand National races at the time, and he got signed as a test driver for Joe Gibbs, and they moved down south and everything. Well, his boy Max ended up coming back up here, and he runs one of the Hanky Baldwin dirt modifieds.
Okay.
That's out of Weedsport.
Okay.
And he's had some good success in those. And
Well, he raced Sunday at Oswego, right?
Yeah.
Did I see his name?
Yep.
Huh?
Yeah, he was at Oswego. Yep.
Yeah.
And he won this year with one of the series we were talking about, K&N East, which is now under the NASCAR banner. He won at Watkins Glen, which was his first NASCAR win. He won from the pole.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Kind of neat.
I would say this is. I mean, we're way off topic,
now.
right? But
we're deep in the woods and lost.
But I have to say, I have to mention this just because I think it's cool. I don't know why I was looking, but I was looking at the NASCAR points earlier this week, and I saw that Stuart Friesen is currently second.
Yes, he is.
That is super cool.
Yes, it is.
That's the truck series?
That's the truck series, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was at Talladega, right? And he went down, and he was not the next car on a lap down, so he's done. He's done. And they got a restart with like 12 to go, and they wrecked everybody in front of him. He got through the mess, so he's the next car lap down. So he restarts 6th with like 2 to go, and he drafted all the way up to 4th. Ended up trying to pass more and fell back to 6th, and the leader got disqualified for going out of bounds.
Oh.
So he got moved up to 5th and helped him out in points. And he got a win. We're way off, but it's I control the board, and you can listen to me talk.
Question.
He got the win in Eldora.
Yeah, I did know that. Yeah, I did know that.
Chris,
Yes.
who owns Friesen's team? That's a big dollar Series. Who owns that racing team?
The one that Friesen races, it's not his own. Is it their own team?
What car are you talking about? You're talking about the truck, the modified.
The truck series.
The truck series is, I believe, it's officially entered under FHR, Friesen Halmar Racing, I believe. So I believe he's co-owner of that one. That one might just be Halmar's, and Friesen Halmar Racing might be his modified.
Right.
I can't remember the way that all that fell out, because now he's got cars that he fields for his wife Jessica Friesen, who's Jessica Zemkin, which is Ray Zemkin's kid.
Yeah.
Zemkin's run. Jessica's run a bunch of races for Tony Stewart and sprint cars and stuff, and very successful driver in her own right.
Well, I don't know how many races are left, but I have to say, when I saw that he was second in points, it's like, all right, I have to make an attempt here to watch the Truck Series races and root Stuart Friesen on, because to have basically a local boy, right?
Top 5 in Alabama Saturday, and made it to the race on Sunday in Oswego.
Yeah, that's super cool. So yeah, hopefully everything turns out. I mean, even if he finishes, let's call it second or third, I mean, that's still incredible. But yeah, I'll definitely be pulling for him, see if he can win. But I guess getting back to drag racing,
lost 20 minutes of our lives.
Well, that's all right.
None of the straight liners care about.
Oh no!
So Phil, did you ever race before you went in the Navy?
Just my street car and stuff, you know. I had a 60 Falcon and a 63 Chevy Bel Air. Yeah, no, and I raced them at King's and or Jackson's, just other than that, yeah.
Right,
no.
right.
Like I say, my first race car was in 1976 when I bought the Storm Along Westburg and Westfall Super Stocker.
Right.
That was my first race car.
Now, you were traveling with Butch at that time.
Well, I go with him, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then after I got my own car, he had moved to Florida from Staten Island, so we weren't seeing each other as much.
Right.
You know.
And what was the motivation, that you had, that you wanted to take the step up from, just helping Butch to, hey, you know what, I want to go get my own car and do that?
Well, my ex-wife and I were both working at Kodak, so we were making some real good money and stuff, and so we scrunched some money together and we bought a super stock 67 Camaro.
Yeah. And did you buy that car complete?
Yeah, it was turnkey when I bought it, Yeah.
I would say, I mean, obviously it was a good running car when you bought it.
Yeah.
And then I know that you sold it to a guy in Rochester, is that right?
No. What happened was it was sold to a guy named Walt Peck in Syracuse.
Okay.
And there was a guy, his name was Walt Miller, that was a manager of the Syracuse Auto Finishers. It was Walt Miller, was it? Walt Peck? Walt Miller. Walt Miller, his name was.
Okay.
And Walt was a real good friend of mine, and he set the whole deal up, and then they put a big black blower in that car.
Yeah.
And they bent the car all up, drive it, and this was racing it on the street and everything.
Right.
And then years later, I saw this guy that bought the car from me on Facebook, and I talked to him, and he said, "Yeah, we junked the car," and I'm like, "Oh man."
Yeah, that definitely hurts.
Well, but the money that I made on the Super Stocker helped buy the Gold Rush trailer that we still have today.
Right, yep. Yeah, and obviously from there, like you said, you moved from that car to the Yellow Street Roadster. Right. And I guess, again, kind of what was, it's funny because it's the street roadsters like that, obviously we had become really popular for super gas and stuff like that in the early 80s. I mean, was that the whole reason why you decided to build something like that? I mean... Well,
again, going back to Butch, when I was around with Butch and all the time, I got to be real good friends too with, excuse me, with some of those Pennsylvania guys. Okay, and there was a guy down there. His name was Neil Marr, and they used to call him Super Press. And he had a B Street Roadster that S&W had built for him and stuff. And I got to be good friends with him. And I just, man, this thing is neat, you know.
Yeah.
You know, you take the front end off this thing or the body off it, and everything's right there. And you sit on a drywall pail and put the headers on. The headers on the Camaro were a pain in the neck to put on.
Right.
And I'm seeing stuff like this, and you know, I had a car. They built a car that you could work on, and it wasn't, you know, like a regular street Camaro.
Right.
I liked it. You take the doors off, you take the front end off,
Yeah.
you take the tunnel off out of the transmission.
Yeah. Now, was the street, when you bought that Street Roadster, did you buy that brand new from S&W?
Well, what the story was on it, no, I didn't. It was a year old. It was S&W's personal. They were really pushing hard on Street Roadsters, and that was their personal car that they ran in. They ran it in super gas and stuff. And I talked to Walt Weenie. That was Scott Weenie's father at the time.
Right.
Would have been 85, I think. Yeah, about 85. And I just told him that I was interested in buying a Street Roadster, or having a Street Roadster built and stuff. And he says, well, you ought to come down here. I got one. And he was telling me what it was and everything. And I went down and I looked at it. And a couple weeks later, I came back with a trailer and picked it up.
Now, and I guess I didn't realize that. I thought that potentially was a shop car for S&W.
Yes, it was. You know.
And I'm assuming that Scott was driving it in super gas at the time.
No, Scott was still pretty young back then. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay, there was a guy in his name, and he was a real good friend of Walt Weenie's, and his name was Dave Wong.
Okay.
I don't know whatever happened to him. Dave was driving it for S&W and stuff.
Okay. All right. Now, was that the car that was crashed, or was that the car that you sold at Indy?
No. The yellow one got crashed at Lancaster. The strut broke on it.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And then what we did was we took a lot of the parts off that, and Jeff built the Red Street Roadster.
Yeah. And then you went to Indy with that, and someone basically said, I want this car.
Yeah. It was a couple years later. You know, I had the Red Street Roadster.
Yeah. Whoa. Slow down. You went to Indy, and somebody just said, I want this car. And
well, what happened is, okay, here's another story for you. Okay.
well, you just said, well, yeah, just cruise down. We gotta. I mean, this has got to be good.
The Street Roadster guys, okay, all right. When we were at national events, back then I was running hard on the road on national events and points races, and we all sort of, you know, talked together, hung out together and stuff. And there was a guy, his name was Joe Bean, and he was from Houston, Texas. And he had a really beautiful Street Roadster. And some guys that got a pile of money, they were two brothers from the Houston area. Yeah. They one of their sons got killed in a car crash, and they had a lot of insurance money, and they wanted to buy Joe's Street Roadster, and he goes, no, I don't do that. I don't want to sell my Street Roadster. He says, bring your trailer, a bag full of money in cash, and come to Indy. If you want to find a Street Roadster that's nice, there'll be 20 of them there, you know, from competition eliminator to super gas. And they come over and start looking at my car and stuff, and I wasn't at the trailer at the time. My wife was, my first wife, and And I says, he won't probably be back for an hour or so, because I was going to go over to the pro pits or something. And for some reason, I forgot my sunglasses or something, and I came back, and these guys are standing there, and we're looking at it, and we sold it for $25,000. I made more money that day than the guy that won Super Gas.
That's awesome.
And did the car leave with them?
Well, oh yeah, and they wouldn't let the. I had to go. I don't know if you guys remember who Greg Exacounts was.
I do.
He was our division director.
Yeah.
I had to go to the tower and find Greg and say, Greg, I just sold my race car. I need permission from security to let them bring their rig in so they can, load it up.
Oh.
Nobody would let them bring it in. And so I went to saw Greg, and Greg, he called whoever he did and let them right in. They loaded the car up, and this was like Thursday or Friday of the Indy race, and I want to say, when was it? Sunday, I think they raced it at Houston Raceway or something,
Oh, so you didn't even get to race at Indy then?
No, hell no. I had 25,000, so I sat there.
Yeah.
Plenty of reasons to not have to race.
Right. Yeah, at that point, it's like, I'm just going to sit here and...
It was all set, okay? In the National Dragster, Sam Giannino from the Detroit area had a Jerry Hawes Firebird, and I was all set to buy it. We come up with a price, and everything's cool. And then all of a sudden he says, oh, no. I says, yeah, I'm going to take it home this weekend with me. I got the money with me right now, And he goes, oh, no. This was the first year that the Dallas Motorplex, and he says, I've got to race that car. I want to take it to Dallas and run pro stock down there with it. And I says, no. I want the car now. And the whole deal came apart and stuff, So.
Wow.
Yeah, that's funny. So at that point, you came back home and said, all right.
Then I bought this car,
Now, did you already know about that the Camaro was available and for sale? And
that's another long story.
Well, the short story is that you got the Camaro, and that's what you've been racing ever since.
Yeah, and you've been driving a lot, running it a lot,
Trying, at least. Now,
these test runs.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
donation runs.
Right. Were you? I guess what made you decide to get out of super stock and go super gas racing?
Well, the first thing is, I was running Super I and Super H automatic.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
One of the worst classes in the world to be racing at the time. Okay. Now, when we would run class eliminator, for class, let's see, Dave Wortman was in Super I automatic, Bobby Warren was in Super I automatic, Amy Funk was in there, Ed Hamburger, some of the fastest cars in the country, and they're in my class.
Right, right.
And Jason, when I started out, this would have been 76, I bought it right after Indy in 76. So in 77 was my first year. The index was like 1121. When I got out in 84,
Yeah.
or 83, I'm sorry, I got out in 83, the index had gone from 1121 to 1091. Every time I get it a tenth and a half under, NHRA hit the index again, And, when I started, it had ladder bars. It had Lakewood slapper bars on it, and when I got done, it had ladder bars,
Yeah.
With big tires under it, and, we put a cage in it. That's when all the stuff was really coming to life of making a super stock or a race car.
Yep. But you didn't think at the time you weren't thinking, hey, you know what, I'm going to go just build another super stocker in a different class?
Well, sort of changed my mind was when I started seeing some of these, and I'm talking modified cars now, or a modified car or competition eliminator
right.
dragsters. I mean, they were so much easier to work on stuff, I wasn't hanging over fenders, and this is stuff that I said before. You take the doors and the front end off and you work on it.
Yeah.
And that had a big bearing, plus the index and stuff,
Well, you're talking about I remember you talking about something with the muffler or an exhaust pipe or something that was rubbing or something on one side of the Camaro, I think, right? This was early, like way back when we first started the show. You were talking about having something that had worn through or something on one part of the exhaust system. No,
no.
You don't remember that conversation?
I do not remember that conversation. I remember.
You were telling me about it. We were on location someplace.
Yep.
And there was a car there that had no doors and no fenders or hood on it.
Yep.
And we could see where those pipes and everything went. And you actually showed me what was happening. And one of the pipes where it came down off the block had gotten thin in the bottom. So you had ended up doing something with the backside of that. And then
that's Jason's car.
That's probably my car.
Oh, it was the Corvette.
Yeah, that's a Corvette. Right. Yeah. I mean, my headers right now are literally paper thin. So I mean, they're not even paper thin. They are literally holes in the headers at this point that Phil and I have patched up to basically just get it through the end of last year. So yeah, that's a big thing that mine needs. But yeah, mine. So wanted to and that was my car. Now I kind of remember what you're talking about.
Okay.
So after I had my car redone, I went to put the headers on, and I couldn't get the one tube on, and it was because when they brought the new frame rails out kind of from the cage, they moved them just slightly, and it was just close enough that it was hitting the one header tube. So one guy came over to the house. He's like, "Oh, it's no big deal. I'll just cut the tube and we'll just rotate a bit of it just to get it out of the way and be fine." Because I mean, it was barely. I mean, I could have taken a hammer and dinged it in, but
right.
So when he went to weld it back up after he cut it, it was like every time he'd strike the welder up to try and weld it back together, he'd blow right through it. He's like, "Man, these things are paper thin." It's like
left to weld.
Right. He's like, "You need to get a new set of headers soon." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay." Well,
yep, probably do.
Right. Yeah. Probably 3 years later, and it was like, "Oh, look, there's a tiny little hole." It was like, okay, no big deal, right? It's like a little, I'm going to say, 1/8-inch diameter hole. I think Phil and I made 3 passes on the car. I come home and it was like, eek, that little tiny 1/8-inch diameter hole is now the size of a quarter. And yeah, by the time we got done looking, it's like, okay, well, yeah, here's a hole here. So I guess the good news is that I had a whole bunch of header tubing in the garage, literally left over from when those headers were built by my dad and my uncle a bazillion years ago, and took it over to Phil's house, and he put them on the bandsaw and cut little patches. So we kind of smushed it over the holes, and then used some RTV and some worm gear clamps, and basically said, okay, this will be good enough to kind of get us through the year. But yeah, my car at this point is waiting for somebody to build a new set of headers.
The other red car.
The other red car,
gotcha.
Yes. Which, I don't know why this made me think of this, Phil, but Chris asked this, and I don't know the answer to this. So prior to me crashing the car, at that point, the car was...
You make me sound like a jerk.
Yeah. So the car was painted and lettered. Did Delaney letter the car at that point?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. No. In other words, if you see the Phil Harnden on the yellow car, he did that too.
Okay, all right, yeah. I mean, Chris.
That picture that just came up in the last day or two on.
Yes, yeah, on Facebook,
really?
Yeah. That's Delaney's work, and then the when the car was painted, when Bob Runge painted it red. Yes, that's Dan's work.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know the answer to the question. I'm like, man, I don't know. I'm like,
Yep.
I don't know why I didn't know that. I should have, but
Sure.
So now what's I guess you have, not, when are you turning the big...
Oh, never mind. Don't even talk about that. And Chris, unfortunately, Thanksgiving Day, I will be 70 years old.
Oh, happy birthday.
So how many years will that make that you'll be involved in racing then?
Well, I say that this is the way I say it, okay?
Yep.
Right now, okay, as of today, I've raced a race car 43 years, okay?
Yep.
I mean, when I started going to the racetrack, drag racing, 1960 to today, you know?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, it was probably 59 or 60 is when I started going to South Butler, you know?
But Chris was just counting on his fingers. I think he's thinking, all right, how many years until we hit 50, right?
Nope.
Oh.
No. Did you race in 1959?
No. Chris,
raced in the 60s, right?
I was 10 years old, and but that's when I started going to the racetrack.
Gotcha.
Probably the first time I went down a racetrack in a street car now, not a race car, would have been 65.
So you raced in the 60s. That was the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s.
Oh, okay.
Double O's. In the teens. So next year, that's the seventh decade of racing.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible.
Don't tell me I've seen a few water drops go over the falls.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But yeah, it's that's impressive.
So we're gonna try and get.
I'm jealous of Jason because he can do all this stuff, crawl under here and there and that and do that, and I can't do that no more.
Well,
that's one. The good thing about Jason is I just, he does a lot of the little stuff that I can't do anymore that'll just kill me,
The funny thing is that I guess it's all perspective. But yeah, the funny thing is that Phil's like, oh, can you get under there and do that? And it's like, okay, I'll go do that. And it's like, he does realize that I'm 50 years old, right?
And I take advantage of it too. Hey, by the way, so before I don't forget, after I get back from Florida this time, okay, we got to take that gas grill down.
Before you go to after you get.
I will still use it in the first part of December.
Oh. Yeah, so that's part of Jason's chores as driver of Phil Harnden's race car. Is I get to help him, put the gas grill away and take. Well, I used to have him take the bird bath down, but now he does it with the John Deere.
Yeah. But take the power washer down cellar so don't get freeze.
Right. So yeah, this is all part of Jason's chores in the spring and winter time.
Yeah, Chris, we've had a lot of fun, Jason and I. And maybe we'll have a few more years here,
That'd be good.
To see how things go and everything,
Did Jason finish raking yet?
What, my place?
Yeah, he was trying.
No, he doesn't. I mulch all my leaves and stuff with a John Deere. That's my job.
He was trying to get me to come over and clean the gutters, though.
I ended up having to do that. I even tried to get his younger son to do it. Listen, I'll pay him. He won't do it.
I could just imagine. With the John Deere, you've got the pressure washer next to you in the bucket, him lifting you up close to the roof.
Right.
You standing in a ladder propped against the side of the house trying to finish the job.
Right.
I think what could possibly go wrong?
Three-ring circus.
Not my monkeys, not my circus, whatever.
Right. Well, the good news is the car is ready to go at this point, and everything
All we got to do is put a new set of sneakers on her, and she's ready to go again.
Yeah, we got ourselves a nice new set of tires. Jeff Jackson was nice enough to sell us basically a brand new set of Mickey Thompsons for the front, so we got those sitting in my garage, and we're in real good shape. Get a barrel of gas, and we're all set.
Awesome.
So yeah, hopefully we'll. Who knows? I mean, we've talked about the last couple of years actually going. And maybe hitting one of those, bigger division races earlier in the year. But the last few years, it's just been such a catastrophe. Maybe this year will be the year that we could do that, actually.
Yeah, you're like talking about Norwalk, right?
Yeah, Norwalk or something like that, exactly.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Well, we'll see.
Car owners in.
Yeah, right. Well, there's we also have to get the real car owner's boss. So, I mean, it says McGuire Motorsports on the side of the car, right, Phil?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So we need to get McGuire Motorsports permission to go to Norwalk too,
so we can use the motorhome.
Right.
So we're not sleeping in the back of the trailer or in the crew cab.
Yeah, my days of sleeping in the back of the crew cab are over.
I hear you. You know, maybe I don't know if Nancy's downstairs. I don't know if she's listening to this or not. You know, she knows it's on, but I don't know if she's listening to it.
Probably not. She's probably like, oh, I've heard these stories so many times, I don't want to hear them anymore.
No, this is true. You know.
Well, hey, it's getting to be 5 to the hour here, so we did fill up the whole hour with stories from Phil Harnden.
Yep, we're halfway to the home.
Yeah, we're halfway home, right?
What do you mean? You told me an hour, not 2.
All right, we'll let you off the hook after an hour.
Okay.
Well, is there anybody? Obviously, we always give our guests an opportunity to thank people at the end. I mean, do you have an official?
Like I said, I'd mentioned FJ and John Torelli and especially what's this guy's name? Can't think of. Oh, Jason.
You don't have to thank me. I mean, it's self-serving for me.
But I mean, all of the malarkey that you've put up with all this stuff, and even me and stuff. And the other day, I was very surprised that Torelli called me, and we got some really good people out there that think about us and stuff, and the deal with Freddie was he put the struts on in FJ, and everything went smooth. The time element and everything. There's some good people out there that can do some really nice work. Oh
yeah, for sure, and not only do nice work, but good people too.
For sure. So.
All right.
What do you think?
I think Phil's probably ready to go downstairs and lay on the couch.
I'm sure.
Well, my ear's getting tired.
All right. We'll let you go.
I don't have a high-dollar speakerphone. I'm upstairs where it's quiet, and my ear's getting tired,
Well, I put together a list of stuff that I still have to ask you about, so we know for sure that you'll have to come back on because we got to finish everything that we got follow-up questions.
Hey, when you guys need to fill in or something, hey, go ahead. I'll do it. Not a problem.
Okay. Well, that's good to know.
Well, we're going to get you into the studio one of these days.
Yes, we need to get you in.
Well, yeah, that's what you and I talked about, Jay. You said, hey, it's really good if we get you to come to the studio. Yeah, we can do that,
I might even buy you dinner.
Really?
Maybe. We'll see.
Oh, man.
If we know far enough ahead of time, we can rig it up so he can sit on the couch. Just like at home.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, Phil. We'll see you later.
Hey, good talking to both of you.
Yeah, you too. We'll talk to you soon.
Enjoyed it. Thanks.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye. We almost got an hour. It was an hour and 5 seconds.
Yeah.
It was right on.
Well, I will say that Phil is not a big talker on the phone. I mean, not that he won't spend 10, 15 minutes, but you spend 10, 15 minutes on the phone, it's like, okay, let me go. All right.
That was good.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to get him in the studio sometime.
Right. Then you won't have to worry about the phone. We can keep him for 2.5 hours, 3 hours, whatever it takes,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, exactly. We can start talking about the Navy, and what we should do is get, if he's coming up, get Rod McNeil out here at the same time.
Track him down to see if he's around.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be good. I got some pictures to show you if we're doing a post-production meeting to game plan the next one. I guess it's just 4 images that I got from way back when at Emus Checkered Flag that I got to show you. Okay. Maybe you've seen them in the garage before. They're just hanging there, but they pertain to the early conversation about Waterloo Speedway. With Phil, that are kind of cool. But number one, wow, still stuck in the other show's ranges. 71 here. Real quick before we go, we did the live streams pre and post race from Super Dirt Week with Dirt Track Digest and all the equipment from the crash course, and Dirt Car World Racing Group on the last night had their winners press conference live. So after the race was over, the 200 was over, the top three came over to the table. We had a mic that they passed back and forth. We had a mic that went out into the audience. Everyone was gone, so we didn't have to weave through the matrix of data that was hanging over Oswego Speedway, so we had a pretty decent signal. They liked it enough to where they said that there's some potential future trips coming up before the start of next season.
Oh, no kidding.
Really, really cool.
That is cool.
It was awesome. And then Motorama is releasing all of the news about the plans for their oval stuff officially next Tuesday.
Okay.
So we'll be able to talk a little bit more about that on the 31st lap and on the crash course and on this as we get a little bit closer to registration opening November 1st. So we'll have some content to hit on there. We talked to the folks with ESTA.
Yep.
They're going to be on in the spring, probably in and around when they go to Motorsports Expo in Syracuse.
Yep.
I talked to Jeff Showman. Remember we talked with Matt and everybody that was tied up with the drag racing program down there. They ran the funny car 26 times this year. They did a couple of passes and
it's a lot.
It's a lot. I think that's what he said. He's got another race coming up on the 26th, or he ran it that many times. Let me find that again. 16 times. Ran it 16 times, and the best pass was a 673. Their last race is going to be the 26th of October. So 16 races, not 26.
That's still a lot.
It's still a lot of time in the car, so we're going to be catching up with them in the coming weeks. So a lot of stuff that's forthcoming here.
And I guess for our viewers' information, so next show...
Back things up.
Next show would fall on Halloween, but we both have little children that still like Halloween, so... We think we're going to try and potentially do the 30th?
Yeah, we'll do it on the 30th. As far as everything's cool with Finger Lakes 1, we'll do it on the 30th. That way we can still do all the Halloween stuff, which would be fine by everybody at home. We've got a little Bray Wyatt and a little Bailey. It's going to be trick-or-treating for those of you that follow along with WWE. If you don't, look it up.
I would say my kids are old enough at this point that they haven't even thought about it, quite frankly. And
it's just whatever scary mask is left over
pretty
at Walmart.
Much. Yeah, pretty much.
Whatever's going to be the ticket to free candy.
Yeah, exactly.
One of my coworkers, boy, has had all sorts of stomach problems for the last several years, and they've really amplified in the last week.
Oh.
And since Sunday, he's had no bread, no milk, no cheese. And he went to the doctors, and it's looking like he's going to end up with a celiac or gluten-related sensitivity diagnosis. So we've been talking quite a bit, and I was explaining to my coworker how challenging the candy situation is because how commercialized it is that the little things that make stuff gluten-free and safe get thrown out the window just so they can pump as much stuff out as they can.
Right.
So a little bit of coaching and stuff on how much his diet's going to change.
I would have to assume there's probably all sorts of, just like the warnings that they have on packages, right, that this is processed in a facility that has nuts, right, that there's probably all sorts of cross-contamination, though, right?
Oh, there's tons of cross-contamination. But, wheat isn't going to kill you quite the same way the peanuts will. You're not going to have a Big Mac and go on anaphylaxis.
Right.
But
you won't feel well.
No, so she said, she's like, I'm going to get a big bag of Skittles, and for everything you can't have, I'm just going to give him a bag of Skittles. And I'm like, that's a great plan, but I hope you got a big bag of Skittles because everything gets ruined this time of year. But my kids, they don't like anything with peanut butter. They got a peanut allergy, but they will find plenty otherwise. So they're going to have fun doing the trick-or-treating thing. And you live in a spot where trick-or-treating's got to be crazy. Because it's so densely packed.
It's not. We actually, so anybody in my neighborhood is watching, any of the kids in my neighborhood are watching, we give away full-size candy bars because we actually don't get that many kids. It's unbelievable, actually. For us...
You see my parents' house with a big three-car garage. Yeah. They go through 300 to 350 pieces of candy a night.
Yeah, we end up with, when we used to do the mini bags and stuff like that, we would end up with, basically I'll call it buckets full of candy left over. So my wife's like, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm just going to give away full-size candy bars. I'm like, that's fine.
Right.
I will say, just so sort of along the same lines as your kids with the peanuts and, the Skittles thing, it's like, so my wife hates chocolate. So, yeah, Halloween for her was basically going from house to house being disappointed, right? Right. Oh, yay, a Milky Way. Awesome. That's great. Three Musketeers. So I will say that my house in general always has been the house that had alternative to chocolate candies as well. We always end up giving away like Hershey bars or something, but yeah, the kids were definitely going to be able to come to my house and get Skittles or Starburst or something like that for those ones that potentially, I don't know, 1 in a million didn't like chocolate like my wife.
Well, like an example of the gluten-free thing is Butterfingers are gluten-free.
Really?
They are. The fun-size Butterfinger is gluten-free. The Butterfinger Mini, the little square, is not, because of where they're produced and how they handle
Oh, interesting.
All like the peanut butter shaped candies, like the Halloween pumpkins or the Easter eggs and Christmas trees.
Yep.
Those are not gluten-free, even though all the Reese's stuff is, because they recycle the chocolate. So they lay out the little whatchamacallits or the wafers or the Kit Kats or whatever, and all the chocolate dumps over them, and they just recycle it to put over. There's this big vat, and it's just this continuous fountain of chocolate going over, so it gets cross-contaminated. So you got to watch that kind of stuff. I let them down. I said, what you got to really watch is Twizzlers, Nerds, and Gobstoppers, because last time I looked, none of those were okay. And she's like, oh, man, I wouldn't even have thought. I'm like, well, neither would I. So I went to the internet and started looking. I was like, wow, this is a curse. The greatest news I got in 2009 when I found out that I had celiacs was that rum was gluten-free.
No.
Because otherwise I thought my life was over.
So I have to say, every time we go out to eat, I mean, I feel bad for you just because of the fact that it's like, I mean, you go someplace and you just don't know. I mean, you really have to, I mean, to go out to eat, you have to go to a restaurant where you know that these people essentially know what they're doing, because you can't basically take the loaf of bread, put it on the counter, and then make your steak or something on the same cutting board, right? That's a recipe for disaster for you, and there's very few restaurants that actually know how to do really
Longhorn and Victor is the absolute best.
Are they still there?
Yeah. It's Pizzeria Uno next door that moved.
Oh, okay. All right.
Pizzeria Uno could do gluten-free pizzas, and they had Udi's rolls for their burgers. The place that could not handle it was a restaurant down in Woodstock, Virginia, where when I ordered a salad, they left the croutons on it. They took it to the back after I sent it back and asked for a new one, and they just picked the croutons out. And I got halfway through the salad before I found a crouton at the bottom. And at that point, it's like, now I know I'm going to be sick, and I have an 8-hour drive, and you're not getting any money out of me. Yeah, it was a fun time. But what do you think? I don't think anybody cares about this content.
Yeah, probably not. Probably not. But who knows?
Nonetheless, we won't be on Halloween. We'll be on the day before, on the 30th.
At least we'll try. We'll let everybody know.
We'll target that. But we appreciate everybody tuning in, hanging out with us here for episode number 71. Great to have Phil Harnden on the show. We will see you again in about 2 weeks. We do appreciate it. See you then. This has been the Final Round Drag Racing Podcast, coming to you live from the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. We'll see you right back here again in 2 weeks. Thanks for watching.